When I talked to Ken and Jenny about what to present today, they said, you guys are all like master's degrees in AI, right? So we're going to talk about a few different things this morning. One's going to be cybersecurity. It's kind of simple. We're going to talk about AI agents, also pretty simple. And then we're going to get into multi-agency, getting a little bit more complicated, and then we're going to end with context engineering. And the reason that I chose this topic is because this is not just an overview of what I know, communicating to you about what I'm doing and what you need to know about. This is a big problem that we have as an industry in AI agents, and the future of AI is this concept of context engineering, and how context engineering is going to be very important. Is there a clicker, or do you want? Okay, so a little bit more about me. I've been doing cybersecurity just over 20 some years now, long time. My last business that I founded in 2011, Threat Connect, went from 0 to about 300 enterprise cybersecurity customers, including big companies like Apple and people like that. I started BrickLayer AI as a founder and CEO about 2.5 years ago. And we're on the fast track to enterprise customers and seeing a lot of success in the industry. For fun, I do something called bike camping. I put all my camping gear on my bicycle, and I ride hundreds of miles. This picture is of me finishing the DC to Pittsburgh ride. And my mission for the last 2.5 years has been really thinking about how agentic architecture, AI agents, multi-agency is going to change the world. And I'm super excited to be here today to talk to you about what I'm doing next. So I have been building software for cybersecurity people for a long time, and I'll give you a quick overview of what cybersecurity looks like in most businesses, because I do think that not everyone in the room understands how complex the cybersecurity landscape is. So it's riddled with complexity. Not only do you have your environmental complexity, but you have the threat evolving and trying to get better. You have team members coming and going, and then every one of your people on your team has some kind of specialization, has their own knowledge, and is working together to accomplish the mission of protecting your companies. So it's quite complicated, and for many years, in my entire career, cybersecurity has been a human-driven process. I've been building software for these people for my entire career, but the reality is that software just exacerbated the problem, next slide, which is there's just not enough people to do the job. We're just adding to their workloads by giving them more things to do, more software to use. And the problem's not with the software, the problem is with the human being and the fact that we cannot enable them to be more efficient without completely changing the paradigm of how we support them. And that is where BrickLayer AI comes in. So for the last 2.5 years, I've been building an AI agent platform to extend the capabilities of the human team to use the data, the software, and the capabilities that they already have in their businesses. Next. So what does a platform look like? The first thing about a platform is it's not something you just turn on and you walk away from. Just like human beings are not someone you just hire and give them the job and then you never talk to them again. You have to manage them, you have to help them improve, you have to give them the resources that they require, the context that they need to do their jobs. And so, if you go back one. And so what BrickLayer is a platform for you as a customer to build agents and turn them into the employees that you need. And that means using the tools that your humans use today to do their jobs, that's software. It means giving them the data and the know-how that they need to do their jobs. And so this is where AI agents are headed, is this idea that they're augmenting your human teams. They're capable of doing some of the work that your humans are doing. Next. But We have a philosophical belief at BrickLayer that I think is very important, and that is that just as if there's no human being that knows how to do every task, there's no one AI agent that's going to know how to do everything. There's value in specialization, and BrickLayer has taken an approach for the last 2.5 years to allow agents to specialize. That means having an agent that's specialist in writing a report on incidents, or being able to take a particular kind of cloud alert and process it and take it to through an investigative process. It means being able to have an agent that is an expert in a particular tool or data that you have in your business. But what happens when you have this concept of all of these specialists all working on their own in specialized ways? It creates a collaboration problem. You need to be able to bring your agents together and allow them to work as a team. And so that becomes the next part of the problem. So let's talk about why teamwork and why this concept of investigation is hard. So we've all seen robots put together cars, we've seen automation in the IT industry, and all of those things had one common theme of repetitive motion. They did the same things over and over again. But when we talk about cybersecurity, or we talk about fraud, or we talk about difficult problems that require unique solutions, you're often talking about what I would consider to be an investigative mindset. You don't know the next step until you do the step a priori to it, and that process is very much of interest for AI, but there's some complexity that we need to address as builders of AI to address it. And so things like the journey is uncertain is a factor of an investigative mindset that you have to have. You have to be ready to see the next clue before the next one and the next one. And so the analogy that I was using with my daughter on the way here in the car is that the murder board on that detective show that you watched, and how there's a picture in the center of their primary the person that they're after, and then there's the lines or the strings that have all the connective tissue of the investigation that they've done. And the detective is the one standing there looking at the wall, but the people that conducted the investigative process aren't necessarily the detective. There's the forensic examiner, there's the fire investigator, there's specialists that gave that detective some meaningful piece of information that made that verdict or that outcome of that investigation come to fruition. The other factor of an investigative mindset is you have to have transparency. That detective needs to be able to go to court and say how they came to the conclusion that that guy needs to go to jail. And so when you think about that process, there's a lot of similarity to the way that cybersecurity is done, an investigative mindset for doing an investigative process. Next. So who in the room has heard of prompt engineering? Okay, a few of you. So prompt engineering is all about giving an AI, an LLM, or an AI agent the context it needs to inform its decision. Many times this comes in the form of you typing your goal for the AI and hearing its response. Sometimes you would give it its goal and you'd give it a document that's more context. Sometimes you give it a goal, a document, and allow it to go to the internet. That's even more context. But in all those situations, you're giving one AI as much context as it needs to inform that particular goal. Next slide. The problem with multi-agency is that, just like the telephone game that we played as a child, context is lost in translation. And so there's a lot of people today implementing AI agent to AI agent collaborations that look at every AI agent as an API call. I need you to go do this. I'm not going to tell you why, but just do it for me. And then that agent turns around and asks another agent a question. And so this ecosystem or architecture of AI agents, it's being boiled down right now to the concept of agents communicating with other agents with no context of why. And that will create issues that make investigative processes very difficult. Next. So BrickLayer, from the very get-go, saw this as a challenge, and we built something called a procedure engine that allows BrickLayer agents to work together collaboratively in a way that allows context to be shared across the agents. I'm going beyond the patent in this conversation to talk about the industry problem that is not going to ever be solved in my product. It's going to take the community coming together and truly understanding how to pass context between agents, because in the future, my agent needs to talk to your agents. So it's going to have to be a standard. And so I'm sharing with you, next slide, why I believe this concept of MACE, multi-agent context engineering, is the future of agent-to-agent collaboration in a thoughtful and more assured type of communication as an investigative process would require. And so what this is MACE is a container for context. And so it goes back to the way that BrickLayer was built, where we appreciated the need for a procedure engine to be at the core of the way that agents would collaborate, because they needed to be able to keep track of why each other were doing their work. And so MACE allows all of the context that needs to be used by a particular multi-agent process to be shared in such a way that allows those agents to understand what each other are doing, work as a team, not what we see in the status quo of we all are in a vacuum and we're all asking each other to do things, but we have no idea why. We all agree that's not a good idea, right? So the input, go back one. So the input, the context across the procedure or across a workflow, the ability to understand the output, but the output and the inputs are all contextualized in such a way that you can get back to the raw meaning of the whole investigation from start to finish. Next. So these are the types of contexts that BrickLayer feels are the right ones to keep track of across a multi-agent ecosystem. So the ability to understand the facts that drove each agent's decisions, the ability to understand the workflow or the order of operations, the ability to understand the hypothesis and the reasoning behind how the decisions were made across that ecosystem, and then finally the decision context itself. And as a package, all of these things are meaningful, but they're only meaningful if they're shared in such a way that they bring into context all the agents that participated and how they all acted to create this information. Next. So MACE is not just a container for context. It has to be built as the agents are working together. So remember, an investigative process is dynamic. It has to be built as the agents are working across their workflows. And so the concept of a procedure in MACE is the external-most container of the Venn diagram of context, and then every task that an agent does has the opportunity to add additional context or use additional context from the larger containers. And so this is the raw material for how the agents think outside of the box of just the work that they're doing. Next. And so, first is AI amazingly powerful. I'm excited my daughter was able to join me today. About a year ago, we spent time building an AI agent for our home automation system. It was a really fun project, really pushed the envelope in what a AI agent can do in terms of perceiving the house and reasoning on top of data, and then acting as a control plane to do things. And so things like, we're going to have a party tonight, can you set up music and lighting in the main areas of the house, used to be something that would take me as like a geek and somebody that likes home automation a really long time to do. Now I can just speak to our home automation assistant and it can make all of those changes for us, which is phenomenal. Back to cybersecurity though. Cybersecurity is a very pressing problem, as everyone in this room knows. It is one that has been completely fail or succeed based on human beings being in the right place, the right time, with the right training and the right tooling. And so we believe AI agents, multi-agency, and ultimately a community building a standard for multi-agent context engineering is the future, and I'm really happy to be working with all of you to support that future.